I'm reading The Last Barrier, a Sufi journey, written by Reshad Feilds and published in 1976. This is a story about his time in Turkey with his teacher Hamid. I am here at chapter 9, and it starts with 3 citations. The first one is from Aflaki, The Whirling Ecstasy. True knowledge comes of 3 things: a tongue which repeats the name of God, a heart which is grateful, a patient body. Second one is from Hazrat Inayat Khan. Reason is the illusion of reality. And the last one is from Abdul Qadir Gilani. And protect your heart from being inclined toward what you have renounced of people and desires and wishes and option and effort, and from losing patience and harmony and pleasures with God at the time of the befalling of calamity. I found it very difficult to make up my mind, because any form of logical reasoning seemed impossible. The thought of accompanying the Sheikh to Istanbul was very exciting, but there was still my promise. So much has happened in the last 2 weeks that instead of an easy flow of events, one into another, all order had disappeared. Without order, it is almost impossible to make a conscious decision. But it was slowly dawning on me that we are almost incapable of making conscious decisions in this world anyway. We have the feeling that we can make some sort of decision between this and that, or to take a journey here or there. Yet there is another way of life that requires only that one abandon oneself to be carried to wherever we should be. The decision is made for us in the moment that we sacrifice our own will to the greater will. I was only now coming to know what it meant to surrender as a living experience. Because I had left England and my own past behind, had taken the plunge into the unknown, I was now being given a chance for an understanding of how the real world unfolds itself into this relative world. In normal terms, the events of the past weeks made no sense at all. The almost ceaseless travelling, the series of coincidences that could not be explained, the meetings with these strange people who seemed to be pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, all of these things served to show my doubting mind a truth that could not be denied. There are laws governing our existence about which we have no understanding at all. Our lives are ruled by forces which, although invisible and intangible, have power greater than anything that can be seen or experienced in the physical world. Hamid had said that there was another language, the language of the heart, so there must be a way of understanding with direct insight rather than with discursive reasoning. As I walked along the cold winter streets of Konya that day, I felt the inevitability of all that I had experienced. If I could keep from interfering with the passage of events by using my own will or by trying to analyze everything, then I would be led to the greater knowledge of which I searched. It was late in the afternoon when I returned to the hotel, resolved to just let go, to relax and let events show me what I should do. I lay down on my bed and stared at the ceiling, with the sound of the sikar running through my mind. The room seemed filled with a tremendous sense of dignity and presence of the dervishes I had met. It was like nothing I had ever known, and I felt that if only every human being could know the intensity of love for God that these people felt, then a real change could come about, a new society could be built based on love and knowledge rather than on fear, ambition and greed. It was not a question of copying the dervishes in their practices, but rather of learning to live life passionately as they did, and of bringing that understanding into each moment of our lives. When I awoke, it was dark. I had no recollection of falling asleep. Panic seized me. Half awake and trembling, I fumbled around for my watch. It was 9 p.m. The meeting time had been 7 p.m. Without stopping to think, I pulled my clothes from the hangers, shoved them into the suitcase, feeling that it was vital that I get to Istanbul at once. My mind seemed set on this, and when I tried to consider whether I should stay another day in Konya, there was no doubt at all, but that I must get to Istanbul. The man at the desk seemed surprised at my haste, and asked whether I had had dinner. "It is necessary that you eat, no?" "No," I said. "I don't want food. I must get to the bus station right away. If there's no bus now, I will wait there until one comes." I paid my hotel bill, caught a taxi, and 15 minutes later I was at the bus station. Running to the ticket office, I inquired about a bus to Istanbul. "You want to go now?" asked the man. "Yes, of course, but when does the bus leave?" "Well, sir, the bus has already gone, just 5 minutes ago. But another bus is coming because there were too many people to go on the first one. So you can go on the second bus if you like." In the rush of getting out of the hotel, I had just allowed myself to get to where I had to be. And now here was a special bus, and there was a seat. Obviously the whole thing was intended, and it did not matter that I had not gone to the tombs. It was a great relief, and I sat back in the seat with a sense of ease that I had not felt for a long time. I was on my way back to Istanbul, and soon I would be with Hamid once more. I felt so happy that the long journey passed quickly. Even the discomfort of the bus seat did not bother me, and I slept most of the way. We entered the outskirts of Istanbul just before dawn. The streets were filling with the traders who lined up to catch the early risers on their day to work. The stalls in the open markets were already doing good business, selling fruit of all kinds, fresh vegetables, and bread still hot from the ovens. The minarets resounded with the early morning call to prayer. This time my arrival in Istanbul was not threatening, but more like a homecoming. I felt happier than I had been since the journey started. Nothing seemed ugly to me. Even the noise of the traffic and the jostling and pushing in the street appeared beautiful that morning. Despite my lack of sleep and the events of the day before, I was not tired. The flow of energy that passed through me seemed to touch others as well, for people turned and smiled as we got off the bus at the terminal, and one of the passengers offered me a bag of fruit. It was a good day, and I had every promise of continuing that way. I found a taxi without difficulty, and gave the driver the address of Hamid's cousin, where he had said he would be staying. "You must cross the water by ferry," he had told me, "and then take a bus which will drop you right at the door." I tried to explain all this to the driver, but he spoke neither English nor French. He just smiled at me, baring huge yellow teeth with endless gold fillings, and drove at tremendous speed along the roads. I kept telling him that he should take me to the ferry so that I could cross over the Bosphorus and then find the bus. Stupidly, I had not asked him what he was going to charge me. When he drove on board one of the ferries, I realized that it was too late to turn back and that he was intending to drive me the whole way. What on earth was this trip going to cost? I wondered. But there was nothing to be done about it now. I just sat back and tried to stop worrying. It was another 3/4 of an hour before we pulled up at the address I had given him. The bill was so enormous that I could not pay it all. I tried to explain that I would have to knock on the door of the house and try to borrow some money. The driver was looking very angry, and his smile had become an ominous stare as he held onto my suitcase and pointed at my pocket. Wait, I said. I won't be a moment, and pointed to the house. In the excitement of arriving in Istanbul, I had forgotten that it was quite early in the morning and that people would perhaps still be sleeping. There was no answer to the doorbell, so I tried knocking on the curtained windows. Still, no answer. What if nobody was home? By this time the driver was shouting and threatening me with the police, and a small crowd had gathered around the car. Friend, I said, pointing at the house. But still, there was no answer. Someone came out of the crowd and spoke to me in English. The driver says that he has driven you right across Istanbul and he wants you to pay him. I know, I said, but I have run out of money, and my friend in there, pointing to the door once again, will be able to help. The driver says if you do not pay him at once, he will call the police. Look, I have heard that, I tried to explain, but first I must find my friend, and then everything will be all right. The man from the crowd did not show any emotion. It was as though he had not heard me at all. The driver says that he does not like the Americans. But I'm not American, I answered. I'm English. This was all being translated for the benefit of the crowd, which was growing larger. The driver says that he does not like the English either. He likes the Germans. I don't care a damn who he likes or not likes, I shouted at him. Please tell him that it is all going to be fine and that he will get his money right away. With that, I banged on the door with such force that the window shook. Hamid, I shouted. This time the door opened a little and a familiar face looked out. It was the girl. Her disheveled hair and the pain in her eyes caught the attention of the crowd. As she stepped out on the street, dressed in the same long white gown that she had worn in C-Day, the talking and shouting ceased. The driver dropped his gesticulating but continued to hold tightly to my suitcase. The translator stood just behind me, his mouth hanging open. One by one the crowd turned and moved silently away. It's all right, I said to the driver. Just wait a moment. I eased my way past the girl who remained looking down the street, passing the ball of wool thoughtfully from hand to hand. Hamid, I called out again. He came out of a room on the left, pulling on a dressing gown over his pyjamas. He did not look surprised, nor did he welcome me. The coldness of his greeting wiped away all that remained of the joy that I had experienced early that morning. I explained my predicament, and he went back into his room, returning in a moment to hand me 200 lira. Then he went after the girl, who had walked out into the street. The crowd had dispersed, and the driver was now back in his car. Some children had come up and were playing around the girl, imitating her slow walk and silent movements. She seemed unaware, walking slowly up the street, her gown caught by the morning breeze. Hamid brought her back into the house and took her quietly upstairs. I traded the driver the 200 lira for my suitcase, expecting and receiving no change. Then I followed them into the house. So I stop this here for now, and we'll continue soon. Today is the 7th of July.